Thanks to the, I'll call you folks the fearless few, the three of you who've joined me, and hopefully we'll get a few more added here. My name is Larry Lewis, and I work with the Paciello Group. We're a digital accessibility firm that's owned by a larger company named Vispero. Some of you have heard of Vispero. Vispero is an organization who owns a number of different companies that make assistive technology for people who are visually impaired and also have secondary disabilities along with that. And they also own the Paciello Group, and we are their digital accessibility arm. We also do reasonable accommodation work and so forth in the 504 space. But today I want to talk to you about a testing tool that we have, and it's actually a testing tool that convinced me about 2.5 years ago to actually join the Paciello Group, because it's a one-of-a-kind testing tool that's most helpful. I can make this slide deck available to whoever wants it as well. I'll give my email at the end, and whoever wants it, I'm happy. It's just a generic slide deck that I use for these presentations. I'm going to blow through these slides pretty quickly and get right to the demo, but I think the slides will help unpack what it is JAWS Inspect is and set realistic expectations. So because we're based down in Clearwater, Florida, our headquarters, there's always been a shark theme associated with the JAWS for Windows screen reader. And JAWS for Windows, along with Zoom Text, would be a couple of our parent company's flagship products that some of you have heard of. And so I've entitled this "Taking a Bite Out of JAWS Testing" to further capitalize on the whole shark motif or whatever. In my career, I've spent a fair amount of time teaching folks how to conduct manual accessibility testing. And that can be challenging when you're dealing with individuals who want to do the right thing, who want to conduct manual tests to sort of capture user defects and whatnot. They want to do the right thing, but there's only so many hours in a day. And the idea of using a screen reader can be rather daunting to them, when oftentimes many of them, especially QA testers and so forth, find it difficult to actually learn how to use a screen reader well enough to do successful, consistent accessibility testing. And listed a few of the problems up here: listening to synthetic speech, steep learning curve, learning how to use a screen reader. It generally would take me maybe a full day, if not a day and a half to 2 days, to teach a room full of individuals how to conduct manual accessibility testing, doing a few things, excuse me, very well. And so we came out with a product about 2.5 years ago called JAWS Inspect. Excuse me, just for a minute. I promise you I'm not sick, but fortunately we're more than 6 feet apart. Just had a bit of a frog in my throat there. So we came out with a product called JAWS Inspect. What JAWS Inspect is it's a testing variant of the JAWS for Windows screen reader. We recognize that JAWS is one of many screen readers that are out there. There's many types of freeware out there. But from a desktop perspective, you know, JAWS is something that you're going to run into quite a bit in employment settings and corporate settings. One of my jobs with the Paciello Group is to manage our federal business as well. So you're going to find JAWS showing up from time to time in corporate environments and things like that. I recognize as a JAWS user myself that there's other products like NVDA and other mobile products that are out there. Because our flagship product is JAWS, we base JAWS Inspect off of our code base for JAWS for Windows. What JAWS Inspect does is it provides visual transcripts for individuals who are sighted to basically reflect the screen reader experience for somebody who's visually impaired. It's fully accessible for somebody who's visually impaired, and so somebody like myself could use JAWS Inspect to basically validate what I am experiencing using the JAWS for Windows screen reader. It's a tool to really validate user defects, and it's not so much a compliance tool, nor is it an automated scanning tool, but it is a tool that runs standalone apart from JAWS, or it can be ran with running. Some of the benefits are you can't really argue with transcripts. You can't argue with me if I hear something and you say you don't, even if I'm right. I use the product all the time, and somebody who is a cited QA tester may not. It's very easy to argue with individuals when hearing can be very subjective and so forth. And so the transcripts take away that part of it. We also have less of a learning curve with JAWS Inspect, and that's very helpful as well. And you're going to see an immediate impact as it relates to how it impacts usability and accessibility when we get into the demo. So there's two instances of JAWS Inspect. There is a network instance where you can have shared authorizations on a network that often a lot of corporations will use because they have user testing going on in different types of environments and so forth, and they might want to use those shared authorization tokens. Or you can have standalone instance of JAWS Inspect on individual workstations. It's a Windows-based product. We can get you up and rolling with a virtual machine situation if you are using a Mac, and I understand a lot of developers do like their Macs. JAWS for Windows is a Windows product, and so is JAWS Inspect, but we'll make it work for you if you have a Macintosh. JAWS Inspect is very easy to use. It's going to sit in our system tray when we're not using it. It's also browser agnostic, which means it will work with Edge, the latest version of Edge, I should say, Chrome, Firefox, and the dreaded Internet Explorer 11. We still support it. I do not advise doing manual accessibility tests with IE 11 unless it can't be helped. And there are fewer instances, fewer and fewer times when you want to use that. So JAWS Inspect allows for a variety of different types of reports to be generated. And I want to walk through those with you before I show them. The first thing that any manual accessibility tester should do is make sure that their HTML is labeled properly, because without that happening first, all the other stuff that we want to check for isn't going to get very far. So the very first thing that I'll show you how to do is to run a full page report. And the full page report is pretty much just scan through a web page, and it's going to scan all your HTML elements and generate transcripts as to how those elements are being rendered by the screen reader. Good or bad, it's still up to you to comb through those reports, and I'll show you how to do that. Code snippets will be shown for single elements, and what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to identify issues, select those issues, and export those problem areas out to a spreadsheet, and I'll show you how that's done momentarily. If you are a developer just wanting to fix an individual element, or if you're just doing what we would call maybe a smoke test on a particular part of the page, you would just want to scan a particular element, we can do that as well. We don't have to scan a full page. If you want to get into the weeds and look at the element properties and look at the DOM tree and the source code and all that, we can give you a different look at an individual element, which I'll show you how to do. Once you have your HTML sorted out and identified where there are problems or whatever, the next thing that needs to happen in a manual accessibility test is you need to check the reading order, especially when you're dealing with progression of moving through forms and those different types of things, maybe an e-learning type situation. We want to make sure that your reading order is correct. And so we have a report called the Say All report that lets you do that. The Say All report, we'll run that and we'll take a look at how that works, but you need your reading order before we can move on to the next step. Live testing with a speech viewer. So the speech viewer is sort of our way to record a user journey, was what we would call it, what the user is actually expected to do. And I'll show you how that looks. Just a moment. Bear with me just a second. Once we are able to test those user journeys, we're able to capture them to a spreadsheet so that you can walk through step by step what went well with your team and what maybe needs some help. And we'll take a look at how that works. If you are into automated scripts, running automated scripts and running a test tool against those scripts, we have a batch file that's basically going to run JAWS inspect in the background and capture all the activity of that automated script that's been ran. And it's kind of like the speech viewer on steroids is all it is. We're going to pretty much set that up so that when you run your automated script, all the activity that occurs in that script is going to be captured and saved to a spreadsheet for you to review. And the last feature that I'll show you if there's time is a utility called ARIA Live. If you're a developer who tests content or who develops content using ARIA Live techniques and you're pushing live updates to your page, or if you're using ARIA Live for error handling or something like that, we have a way to test your ARIA Live. So let's get rid of these slides now that you've suffered through those slides with me. I'm going to load JAWS Inspect. I'm using my keyboard, obviously, because I'm a JAWS user, but you could use your mouse. I typically yell at people when they use their mice during screen reader testing training with me, but I'm not going to yell if you use your mouse with JAWS Inspect. Unless you're doing live testing, then you're not supposed to. But we'll talk about that in a minute. For launching JAWS Inspect and for running some of the reports, you can most certainly do that. So I like to use these demos to pick on websites that I have problems with. I'm going to take you to a website. I'm going to use Chrome as my browser because I like it. And I'm going to open up an airline, just call them out publicly. Frontier Airlines does kind of a bad job. So I'm going to open up the web page. If there's anybody who's visually impaired who's joined us, I will try to be mindful of that because I'm also visually impaired. So this page is loaded. I maximize it, which I am terrible about doing for sighted participants. Maximize that. So what a screen reader user would do is start to work off a script and comb through the page. And we all have our different ways of ascertaining the HTML, if it's labeled properly, reading order. We have our different techniques for doing that as a screen reader user. We're going to let this tool do this for us, though, first few steps. So I'm going to hold down my control key and press my right mouse click. And you'll see my JAWS Inspect menu populate. And if you can't see, just kind of like your context menu, when you hit Shift F10, it's sort of that same sort of menu. We've got our full page report, element under mouse, say all, element properties, ARIA Live, and we have the ability to highlight and clear highlights on particular elements. If we'll go to our live testing mode, which we put somewhere else, we're working to get that moved in a future update so that it fits in that menu where it should have been in the first place, right? So I'm running a report on the Frontier Airlines page. And what's going to happen is it's going to populate. For those of you who are screen reader users who have tested with a screen reader, what you're going to see here is you're going to see a browser window open up, and all of our different HTML is going to be labeled, is going to be grouped together, kind of like a screen reader user would issue commands to pull up specific things. So you see we've got our links. There's 46 items. These are all collapsed unless I want to expand them. We have our controls. Our headings, there's 14 headings here. I'm going to take us to our graphics because I always like showing graphics for people, especially if they're if they have vision, because it makes sense when something's not alt tagged. So I selected graphics, and you see a data table here. In this data table, your first column is going to be a selectable checkbox, and we're going to use that for situations when we find something that we don't like, that we would flag as a defect, and we want to export that out. Our second column is going to be very important because that is our JAWS speech output column. And that's going to basically show you how JAWS would render whatever type of HTML you're testing. We'll take a look at that in a minute. We have a screenshots and a code snippet column. And with the graphics, we've got a file name that we would focus on instead of screenshots to show you the underlying file name. We'll take a look at the code snippets in just a minute. And then we have the ability to locate this particular graphic on the actual web page if we want. And we have an HTML ID for bug tracking that we either derive from the underlying code, or we assign it just for bug tracking purposes. So I want to move us to the second column here. So the very first graphic, it says images search BTN. That's not good. I know that that's a search button, but that's pretty lousy because it's just showing a graphic. It's just reading the file name here. And you're going to see the word, for those of you who have vision, you're going to see, I think, you're going to see link in green here, and that's extra verbosity that JAWS has given me. So first of all, it's being called a button, even though it's a link. Second of all, it's basically showing that it's an image, and it's just not labeled as search link is really what it should say. If it's a button, it should be reflective of being a button. It should not be a link here. So that is a definite flag. Select that. So credit card, take to the air for 40,000 miles, link is in green. So we're gonna leave that alone. That's okay. Let me take it back up here. I just wanted to show you that code here. I'll go ahead and close that here. So we're gonna leave the take to the air, bundle and save, that's fine. Discount then, I'm not really, I'll leave that alone. I won't be too picky. Credit card graphic, we'll leave that. My graphic, I don't know what my graphic means. We're going to select that as well. So we've got, out of these 6 graphics, 2 that definitely have to be fixed with some more appropriate alt text. I'm going to export. I'm going to go here. And I just pressed enter on export selected. I'm going to open this up by going to my downloads bar. And I've opened up a spreadsheet that has captured these two bugs. You've got your HTML ID, the speech being rendered, and the actual file name. And so what I could do with this is I could drop these in Jira or if I'm using a tracking, I could select this and drop it as a table in an email. But I have proof here that these 2 graphics and how I'm hearing these specific graphics are not labeled or are not going to pass a manual accessibility test for a lot of reasons. We've already talked about a button shouldn't be a button if it's a link, and it should also be labeled properly. We also know that my graphic means absolutely nothing to me. So these are problem areas. They're pretty obvious problem areas. If I wanted to get out of this, I can check anything I want here. Let's go to our controls. Here's our form fields. So here you're going to see a role column introduced into the equation, but it's the same kind of table. You see this one-way radio button not checked, round trip radio button checked. You can check all of everything, how it's labeled now. We'll test to make sure that these work with the live testing later. So this edit button here doesn't say to like it's supposed to. You see where I'm at right now. So this just gives you a visual way to go through your links, your controls, your headings, your graphics. It can get pretty intensive when we get into lists and tables, if there are tables on the page, but it's a nice way for you to start, to test your HTML first, which is the first thing you want to do. Quickly, because I'm running behind, I'm going to go to one of these form fields here. I'm going to control right mouse. I'm going to highlight current element. And I'm going to open up the element properties on this element that I've highlighted. Again, I'm using my control right mouse click. Here's my element properties in a browser window. This tells me it's an edit combo. And you see in that speech dialog box, there's not much help there. There's your source. I can view the parent or the DOM tree here. Again, this is great for developers here. I can move back. I can generate a report with all this information in it as well. I can copy that to my clipboard. I can also close that. Okay, that's more of an in the weeds in a dialog box window. You can actually view what the screen reader is saying or what it is not saying, view the source code of that particular element, and also view that element in relation to the DOM tree on the page, okay? Let's assume in a perfect world, we've gotten our HTML labeled and we're good to check the reading order. I'm gonna hold my control right mouse click, and I'm gonna bring up my sales report. Now I find sometimes, and I can't always pinpoint it, but whenever I bring up that element dialog box and I run my sale report, I might get there, boom, there it is. At least I knew it was coming. Let's try that again. I don't know why it does that, but here. Let's try that sale report again. So what we're doing now is we're going to shift from HTML to checking the reading order. And this is scanning through the page, and it's going to show us how the JAWS screen reader renders this page. And again, as you folks well know, just because a page looks okay to the naked eye doesn't mean that the assistive technology is going to read it in the proper order. It all depends on how things are set up in your tab index, right? So we've got two different ways to view this. I'm going to show you my way that most people don't like. Get it out of the way. I like this table view. I just went down to my table button. And this shows you line by line what JAWS says and the code for each line and the order from top to bottom here. I can just go to learn more here, just clicking on that code for you. So you would ascertain if A, this is in the right order, and B, is there stuff missing? Because if there's stuff missing in this report, chances are the screen reader is not capturing it at all. A lot of sighted people don't like this table. So we came out with a text flow. And this is just going to show you, and I'm going to go down to the bottom here and select this page structure button. And now you can see everything lined up on the page. The yellow decorative text is extra helpful text that JAWS would be providing to the user. And you can comb through regions and headings on the page and so forth. And just make sure that this page is laid out the way you want a screen reader user to experience it. And again, if there's something not in your report from your particular web page, it means that the screen reader user is not, is not experiencing it. I was working with a mortgage company as a client last year, and they had I went to their webpage with this, and I heard this big gasp because there was a big first-time home homeowner banner that was across the screen that the screen reader didn't even pick up. And it was a learning moment for them, because as somebody who's visually impaired, who's bought a house and who's actually in the process of buying a new house right now, we want access to those sorts of marketing type specials that are out there. And so I always tell people, accessibility is not just the right thing to do. It's not just the law. It also makes good business sense. There's lots of, as I call them, disabled dollars on the table, right? So anyway, this is our sale report, and you want to make sure that things are in the right reading order and that they're actually present so that the screen reader is capturing them. So when we get our HTML done, when we get our reading order done, we can get into what I call the live testing of capturing the live tests of a user. So we made it difficult, and we're going to fix this in a future update, but we put our speech viewer down in the system tray. If you right mouse click on JAWS Inspect, we're going to move this to the JAWS Inspect menu, the control right mouse click, in hopefully the next release. I'm hoping before the holidays. So I'm going to go to our speech viewer. Right mouse click on JAWS Inspect. I'm doing it the JAWS way. You would do it the mouse way if you have vision. And so I've opened up our speech viewer. Now, anytime I use my arrow keys or my tab, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. Instead of doing that, I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to clear this, pause it. So let's play. We are capturing here me doing my thing, going to Frontier. And this is being captured, for those of you who have vision, it's being captured in the speech viewer. When Jaws, you can see that populated. For those of you who are visually impaired, I just hit my control key to shut Jaws up, but that's all being populated as it's being rendered. And now if I press my arrow keys or my tab or shift tab, are very functional QA testing keystrokes. I'm just tabbing. Let me get up here. There's flight. I just pressed enter on flight. And what I've noticed about this page is it doesn't shift. There we go. My internet's a little slow. You can see the round trip radio button here. Let's say we want to test these radio buttons out, make sure they're grouped properly. I just pressed enter on the radio button and I'm up and down arrowing, so this is fine. Now, when I tab into my from, Jaws is reading the entire list to me. This is terrible because I don't know. But this form is really bad because it doesn't let me sequentially go through it. I have to really jump through a lot of hoops to make that happen. I'm going to pause this. And I'm going to save this transcript out. I want to show you something here. Frontier test CSV. So I just saved out this not very great experience. This up. And now you see line by line in a spreadsheet. You've got 3 columns here. You've got your timestamp, your context, meaning was it me using the keyboard? Was it normal text? Was it a screen reader tutor message? What's the context, and the actual text of the speech that was rendered. So you see I was in Zoom to start there, open participants panel. That's a tutor message right here. You see that? To activate, press spacebar. So this is all captured. Search box. You watch me typing in Chrome. And you can watch me typing in Frontier here. You see my screen message, my two regions, 14 headings, whatever that is. And I'm reading Sail because the page is just running down and just reading the entire page. And so now you can pretty much see everything I'm doing. I'm just going to move down here to where I was having problems. You see I selected flight there. You see my radio buttons, it's telling me it's 2 of 2. So these radio buttons were fine. That was the only part that was fine with this form. And so I went to the from field and it started reading all these cities to me. This is what you're seeing here. It's really distracting to try to fill out what city I want to move from when all that's jabbering in your ear. And then when you tab, you see down here, it got pretty crazy. Like this is an airline that's hard for me to, almost impossible for me to use, and I'm an advanced screen reader user. So that's what the speech viewer does. It will show you as you record your actual testing, tabbing through something, arrowing through combo boxes and radio buttons, entering in text. It'll give you a transcript of what was broken, what went well, and this obviously did not go very well. We didn't even get our from entered in. So there's one other feature I want to show you, and that is our ARIA Live utility. So let me get an example of ARIA Live. We have some examples. So here's our ARIA Live examples here. I'm going to go back to my trusty control right mouse click. Show ARIA Live. So you're going to see a little box up here for those of you who have vision. And as ARIA updates, live updates are pushed to the page, this is all about Florida. You should see, you can see the highest point in Florida. As these are populated every 15 seconds, there's a new update that's pushed. This allows you to check. There's more than 6,000 sandy beaches in Florida. That's being prompted, and that should be shown up there. Again, that's just going to allow you to test your ARIA Live if your developers use that to make sure that what they want being pushed to the screen reader to focus on is actually being articulated to the end user. So it's a pretty slick utility if you use ARIA Live. Just to review before we open up for questions, JAWS Inspect is a testing variant of JAWS. It allows for you to generate transcripts of what the JAWS user is experiencing. It is not an automated test tool, but it is an automated way of conducting manual accessibility testing for many people. Even if you're a savvy screen reader user, JAWS Inspect is going to help you validate what it is you are doing so that you have a better chance of convincing members of your team as to what your findings are and what needs to get fixed. JAWS Inspect allows you to check your HTML through a series of reports, your full page report, your element under mouse report, and then also you're viewing your element properties. JAWS Inspect allows you to check your reading order through the Say All report. It allows you to do all of your live testing through your speech viewer and capture those transcripts. We do have an automated JI Speak batch file that we can set up for you if you have automated test scripts where you want to capture the output of those test scripts. It's pretty much like the speech viewer running silently as you run in an automated test. And then we have the ARIA Live, which I just showed you. So it's a very simple tool to use, but it's very powerful and it fits a specific use. We're finding that we're having a lot more folks who are generally a little bit more intimidated to try to learn all the ins and outs of a screen reader. Love using JAWS Inspect because it just makes it easy for them to capture how things are going, and it helps them set a path forward for fixing things. You still need to know about accessibility. You're not going to learn necessarily all about WCAG and whatnot using a tool like JAWS Inspect, but it is a tool to make your life a lot easier. Even if you're somebody like me who's a very good screen reader user, this just helps validate what it is you're trying to do, and it makes it possible for you to share that content with others. Depending on your situation, and we do a lot with universities and banks and agencies and corporations. This is obviously fee-based, like with any rule of economics, the more of it you buy, the more seats you buy, the lower the cost is. We try to get users using this in 5-seat increments where it's about $1,000 per seat or about $5,000 subscription cost. So there is cost associated with it. And depending on your budget and whatever, we're happy to definitely work with you on that. I think it will save you money in the long run. You can use free tools and you can do that. But when you're dealing with collaboration and sharing and trying to get stuff fixed, I think this tool has quite a bit to offer. So my goal today was to introduce you to that tool in a fairly informal setting. I can open up questions, but before I do that, you can reach me at LLEW. Let me just put it up here. That would be much easier if I just put it up here for you. LLEWIS at Paciello Group. So that's my email. My phone number is 727-803-8000, extension 1909. Maximize that for you. And so I'm happy to do a demo similar to this in earnest with other stakeholders. If there are folks on who want this to be shown to their colleagues or their leadership or whatever, it would be a similar type situation what I just did, maybe a little bit more formal with less coughing in the beginning. I don't know what was going on there. But anyway, that's what the tool is. I've got time to handle a few questions if there are any. Sounds like people are going to be kind to me today. No hard questions?
Actually, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that your presentation was very interesting. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for coming. Again, if there's any, the recording will be available. I know Marissa will get that posted and get that out to folks. If there's anybody who wants the slide deck that I use, there's nothing secretive in there, and I'm happy to share that slide deck with whomever wants it.
If anybody wants a recording, please put your email in the chat and I can send the link to you.
And if you want if you want the slide deck, do that too, and I'll send it to Marissa.
I have a question. So for JAWS Inspect, it's not the same as JAWS, correct?
So JAWS Inspect is a testing variant of JAWS, but it's giving you all of the feedback that a JAWS user would get. So like the live testing that I did is giving you what you're seeing on the screen is what I'm hearing in my ear because I'm a JAWS user. You don't have to use JAWS Inspect with JAWS running. I just have to because I'm a JAWS user and I wouldn't get very far otherwise. But it's the same code base. So when I hear radio button check 2 of 2, that's what you're seeing up there. So it's giving you a visual representation of what the user's hearing. And, case in point that, hearing like an unlabeled 0 button or an unlabeled 1 button or a link, but there's no label on the link. When you just hear link, 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 that's hard to articulate to somebody just by saying that. But if you can show them that, hey, this is what the user's hearing, link, and they don't know what to do. Or if something is labeled, unlabeled search button link, that shouldn't be labeled search button link, and it should have a label on it. It shouldn't be a file name, JPG, button link. That gets too crazy for the user to listen to.
Right.
It shows you all of that exactly as the JAWS user would be experiencing because it's the same code.
Gotcha. And I guess I guess this isn't really a question, or I guess it is. Do you have any advice for a QA engineer that is trying to get her company more into like accessibility testing, especially with JAWS?
Yeah.
Because when I test with JAWS, it's a little bit difficult because we use a VM.
Yeah.
And so I'm the main quality assurance engineer. that
Right.
handles accessibility, and I'm really new to all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you, personal advice is your tab key and your arrow keys are your friends, but you have to know how to use your friends to get your job done.
Yeah.
So understanding that moving, what tab moving you element to element, but arrows moving you within specific elements, those kinds of things. We actually have some inexpensive courseware called TPG Tutor, and it's like 18 courses for on the cheap, like really cheap, like $250, I think. And some of that courseware focuses on how to test. But as far as convincing your leadership about how important it is, we have automated tools out there, and so do a lot of other companies. And what an automated tool will do is help you capture some low-hanging fruit as far as problems that you might have. But there is no automated tool out there, ours included, that is going to give you the deep dive that you're going to get in a manual accessibility test, because there's no human intervention that's really built into those automated tests. So to be able to walk through and like show that you can't purchase a flight happens when you do a manual accessibility test like I just did, right? You can't really capture that the same way fully through an automated scan. So I would say that manual accessibility testing should be important for them for 3 reasons. A, it's the law that they need to be WCAG compliant, and you really can't be fully sure that you're compliant without that manual testing validation in place. Secondly, it's good business. I'm not sure what your company does, but it makes good business sense to do that. You're going to increase your market share if you are able to provide products and services to people who need to use a keyboard to access that. And the nice thing about manual testing and JAWS Inspect is much of what we test for can also be applied for speech input users, right? Because things need to be labeled, they need to be actionable with a keyboard in order for them to work for speech input, right? And then thirdly, and most importantly, there's a lot of legal risk if you don't do that. And I like to save that for the end, but that's probably the biggest. Lots of organizations are getting sued now in a no kidding situation. It's like, if somebody's unable to do something on a specific site and they can make a good case, a company can be sued and not just pay damages, but have to do it right anyway. So those are 3 reasons I would take back to your leadership as to why manual accessibility testing needs to happen. Maybe they can do some things to get you some help. I find JAWS very easy to use because I'm a user, but if you're not a user and you're a QA tester with other things to do during the day, it can be a bit overwhelming, especially when you're using JAWS on a virtual machine. I hope that helps you a little bit.
Yeah, it does. Have you ever used like JAWS on a virtual machine? And if you have, do you ever notice like any discrepancies that happen? Like sometimes when I do use my VM and use JAWS, sometimes it doesn't read out loud and it lags really hard. So
Well, it will lag. It's going to lag, and that's just going to be depending on your setup and your connectivity and whatnot. I hate virtual machines because of that.
yeah. Is there any way better to test with JAWS if you're on a Mac and you have to use a VM?
Not that I'm aware of, unfortunately. I can tell you that JAWS Inspect set up as a VM, you'll at least be able to run the reports and go through the reports quicker. So that might speed it up, but it kind of, JAWS is a Windows product first and foremost. So I don't know how you're going to get around the virtual machine situation with a Mac.
Right.
I don't want to digress from JAWS because we're a JAWS company, but I do think it's right to make you aware that on your Macintosh is a free screen reader called VoiceOver. But you're not gonna get everything that you would get in a JAWS experience for sure.
Yeah.
You'll be able to do some basic testing of your content. And there's a little rectangle, trackable rectangle. I don't feel bad mentioning it because we use VoiceOver as part of our accessibility audits that we provide for people. So we test with VoiceOver and JAWS and NVDA when we run audits for people. But, you know, depending on what your business is, you know, there are a lot of JAWS users out there, and I think it's very good to test with JAWS. But for free tool for like tabbing through fields and arrowing through combo boxes and stuff, VoiceOver will get you a fair amount in a free situation, and it won't have the same log as a virtual desktop situation or a virtual machine situation.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you for answering all those questions.
Oh, absolutely. Marissa says I has to stay here to win anyway.
Yeah, I think your presentation was extremely helpful for me because I've been a QA engineer for about 8-9 months now, and
Oh, wow.
been doing accessibility specifically for about maybe 4 months, and so I've really crammed everything in about like VoiceOver, JAWS, and even using like Assure, and so I just want to like know the best way to use JAWS and see if I'm not missing anything, because for me personally, I don't have a disability. However, I'm really good at putting myself into other people's shoes.
Sure.
And so I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything.
So maybe Marissa, in the chat room or in the chat there, can you put in the link for our ARC toolkit? This lady is using Assure, and we have a free plugin, and my colleague Aaron Gallagher is going to be here in the lounge tomorrow talking about ARC, which is our automated tool.
Okay.
That I'd like you to give a try to our automated plugin called ARC.
Yeah, I will.
And Erin will be here tomorrow. She's sort of my counterpart with the automated stuff.
No, Erin will be here on Friday.
Oh, Friday, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know she was coming later this week.
Yeah.
But if Marissa can sort of give you a taste of what that ARC toolkit would be, that's a free plugin for Chrome. And it might be something you want to check out.
Does it work the same as like Axe Core?
Yes, similar. Similar, a little bit more intensive. I'm not sure if Axe is being supported anymore.
It doesn't support within iframes, and so that's like an issue that I'm having with using Axe.
I'd like you to try ours because it's mapped to our rule sets, and I think you may be okay in iframes.
Okay, great. I will definitely check that out.
Anybody else? Well, I want to say thanks to those of you who came. I hope you got something out of it. Any chats that I'm missing, Marissa? Are we good?
No, I have Bao and Angelina's email addresses, so I will send you guys the recording that will be.
And I'll get the slides over in case they want them, if anybody contacts you, okay?
Yeah, I've sent you an email for the slides, and I would love the recording as well, and the ARC link would be great too.
I put the ARC link in the chat, so you should see that right there.
I don't.
It's also on our website if you go www.ponciologroup.com.
Okay.
And then you go under ARC, and you'll see it in the ARC menu. It's called ARC Toolkit.
And if you sent me an email, I can drop it in there. I have the link. It's just not readily available for me right now.
Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right, folks. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for setting this up, Marissa.
Yep, thank you.
Have a great
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.